Boker Tov. I hope everyone is well, and obviously come out of Pesach now. We're heading into Shabbos, so thought I'd quickly just share some thoughts. Been up nice and early, as you saw earlier on. So we have Parshas Shemini that is to be lain this Shabbos, and perhaps there's a shul or a congregation in this world that is doing it, and we hope there is. And as just to remain consistent with my focuses on the Parsha, I've looked at the name of the Parsha and try to understand some lesson out of that. Now, effectively, I did speak about, just before the final 2 days of Pesach, I spoke about the 8th day and the significance of the 8th day in the diaspora, where the 8th day comes because ideally in the times of when a court would proclaim time, the 8th day was there because we weren't quite sure those out of Israel would actually know when the exact first day of the month is. And so when there's a holiday that precludes work, the 8th day was put in place just to make sure that none of the prohibitions were broken. Interestingly, in glancing at the Parsha, the beginning of the Parsha would certainly belong better at the end of the previous Parsha, Parshas Tzav, because the end of Parshas Tzav describes the first 7 days of the inauguration of the tabernacle, and the beginning of our Parsha here describes the final, the 8th day of the same inauguration, when the divine presence finally descended into the tabernacle. And by breaking to begin a new Parsha in the middle of this story, it seems to be that the Torah is hinting that the 8th day, whilst superficially just sort of a continuation of days, of the days that preceded it, it's actually got a totally different connotation, a totally different character, I suppose. So the discussion of the 8th day of Shemini must begin a new chapter. So there's 7 days in the week, as I hope you all know. It follows that the number 7 alludes to the cycle of the natural world. We know that our 7-day week is generally what we structure ourselves by, though I suppose at the moment, with the way the days are just folding into each other, and time seems to be it's new sort of Corona time is what it's being called, where you kind of getting up later and doing things later, and just time folds in. You don't really know what day it is, and also we have a lot of things that we do are defined by the 7 days. So we have Sheva brachas in times of joy, and then obviously after a chuppah. And unfortunately, on the other side of that, we also have where we sit Shiva after the burial of a loved one, a family member. So we have a lot to do around the days of 7. We wrap the tefillin, males wrap the tefillin around their arms 7 times. So there's a lot about this 7. But 8 represents that is then, because 8 comes after, and it's outside of that 7, outside of that natural cycle, it represents that which is kind of beyond nature, kind of beyond the world, into the most sublime spiritual space, realm, area, which certainly defies any interaction with the physical, with physicality, with the physical world as we know it. Being truly infinite, it can have no meaningful relationship with the finite. So it's a really spiritual thing, and it's fundamental that the incompatibility, it's a big word at this time of the day, between 7 and 8, to which the Torah alludes by placing Shemini in a parsha of its own. So it's totally incompatible, and the Torah is indicating that to us. the Torah is teaching us that 8, that which is infinite and spiritual and godly and above the natural, and 7, the world and the physicality, just can't be mixed. Interesting. So they can't be mixed by man alone, but Hashem and his commands, of course, are not bound by the paradox of matter and spirit, and there truly is a paradox there. So when man, we've spoken about following God's commands in previous parashas as well, and obviously we've got a lot of commands and restrictions that are placed on us right now that we've got to follow. But when man follows Hashem's commandments to perform a particular task with a physical object, something that we are physical in this world, there's a most unlikely fusion of the opposite. So the physical object, whose very nature is to conceal the presence of Hashem, now becomes a pure expression of Hashem's will, of the most highest form of spirituality, which is an interesting thing, and I suppose, it'll probably mean different things to different people, but it is what it is. So the 613 mitzvahs are in fact 613 bridges between 7 and 8, between the natural physical world and 8 being the spiritual world. And so it's through the observance, and it's a theme that I've spoken about a lot, it's through the observance of these mitzvahs that Hashem's will become visible within the physical world. And then, obviously from there, as is taught to us, from that point, the world becomes true, or more true, and certainly complete. And redemption, that I suppose in many ways we've just spoken about in the Passover story, but a lot of us are looking for redemption from these restrictions, from this COVID-19, which I know is very difficult for a lot of people. But redemption, like the 8th day of the inauguration of the tabernacle, when the glory of God appeared to all the people, and that's what redemption is like, and that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for this redemption, this freedom, and yet we've got so many luxuries that a lot of us are still able to access. We have access to our families, we've got wonderful homes. It's just really the physical contact and the ability to feel like we're doing something normal, which I understand is difficult for a lot of people. And so we need to try and tap into the positives. We need to try and tap into the idea of the spiritual world versus the natural world right now. And we've got a lot of time on our hands, and some people are unfortunately alone at this time, and we tend to think a lot, and I know that sometimes can be very good, and sometimes it can be not that good. But mitzvahs are the way to be in a better place, and we've got 613 mitzvahs that we can choose from, and hopefully try and do as many of them as we can. And as I say, I've said it a few times, a part of our mitzvahs right now to respect the restrictions that we're under, that our government is doing their best. Respect them, look out for each other, and really let's just try and tap into the beauty of Shabbos once again this week, and look forward to seeing everybody online for our Zoom Kabbalat Shabbat, and then hopefully as well for Havdalah. So have a good Shabbos, everybody.